You're listening to the Country Chat Podcast with your host, Dom. Subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and follow us on Twitter at country_chat. And stay up to date.
Hi there, you're listening to the Country Chat Podcast with me, Dom. Today I've got a Canadian artist who I believe is now living in Nashville, and her name is Tenille Arts. Hi Tenille.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, how yourself?
I'm doing well.
Is it Nashville you're living in now?
Yeah, I've been living in Nashville for about the last 5 years, so that's where I am right now during all of the quarantine time, I guess.
What's actually happening in Nashville? Because in York, where I'm based, in the north of England, we are currently on a lockdown. So we have literally, we've got to stay indoors. We can't leave unless we're going shopping or for an hour's exercise. That's it for us. What's it like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was that strict, but unfortunately it's not, and we're not really seeing the numbers go down in the Nashville area. So they've actually opened up a few counties around the main county in Nashville, and yeah, it hasn't really changed a whole lot, I don't think. I mean, I've definitely been staying inside and only going to the grocery store. You know, I haven't gone anywhere else, but that's not the case for a lot of people. So it's been a little bit frustrating because obviously we just want it to be over and we want to get back to doing concerts and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but they've got some, you know, like 2-week plans here and there to open things back up. And yeah, I don't know if we're going to get to even the first stage because we haven't seen the numbers go down yet.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed we can open them up soon. I mean, especially here in the UK, you know, a lot of artists are struggling, especially the independent artists, you know, the ones that can't, you know, the ones that have to work as well as perform. It's not a nice situation. What's it been like actually being stuck indoors then? I see that you've done like your guitar. I see you've added loads of jewels and gems to that to pretty it up.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely found things to do. I've always kind of had like little crafts here and there going on. So it's the first couple of weeks, you know, it was full of me just like finishing up some of those projects and working on that. And we just did a big giveaway on my social media of these jean jackets that I painted on. It was one for each song on my album. And so there were all kinds of things like that I've been doing. But now that I've kind of done all of those crafts, I don't really know what else to do. You know, I've had a few Zoom writes, you know, doing it over the computer and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely every day just kind of trying to find things to be productive. And, you know, thankfully I kind of am an independent artist, but not really, you know, I have a very small label behind me. And so, thankfully, you know, I'm still a songwriter as well. So my life hasn't changed a whole lot, but I know a lot of people are struggling, you know, just to even pay their bills. And it's been really sad because we've been so used to being out on the road, and I feel like it's just the weirdest thing to be stuck in one place for such a long time. I mean, I've literally been on the road for the last 2.5 years, and now I'm just like sitting here and it's frustrating.
How's your family coping with it all?
Well, my entire family is back in Canada. So actually my little sister lived out in British Columbia. So she stayed out there for, I guess, like a month while she was quarantined and by herself. And she was finding it to be way too isolating. So she ended up driving home to my home province of Saskatchewan just last week. So my entire family is all home and together, and I'm the only one that's far away. But I kind of had to pick where I wanted to go because I was over in the UK when, you know, they started putting out some of the travel bans and stuff. I was there for the C2C festival, and they all of a sudden, you know, they were like, you got to leave. And so I thought, okay, well, I guess I didn't realize like how long we would be quarantined for. Cause I was like, well, I should go back to Nashville cause all of my stuff is there and all that. And then I'm realizing now, I'm like, okay, well, this means that I mean, if they keep this going on and the traveling, you know, isn't back to normal, I could go a whole year without seeing my family, which would be really sad. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it doesn't turn into that.
I mean, it was a shame that you had to all go home. I mean, a lot of people were excited for the C2C. I mean, I was excited as well. I mean, when I first found out that you was actually going to the C2C, I mean, I've been a fan of yours since, way back to when you did the Breathe the Breathe for the cystic fibrosis.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my very first release ever.
Yeah. I mean, that was back in 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2015. It's crazy.
What's it been like going from doing that to releasing your second album, Love, Heartbreak, and everything in between?
I mean, it's been a journey. When I released Breathe, I would have never expected that, my first release would be a charity single and all of that. But I started getting really involved with cystic fibrosis really early on and doing a bunch of fundraisers around my hometown for a girl that I was close with. And it just, kind of spiraled into that whole releasing a song and all that stuff. And then shortly after, it was 2015 when I moved to Nashville, and I had been coming here since I was 15 years old. So I kind of felt like this was the natural next step for me. And so I moved here and worked for an entire year on an EP, and then we released that. And then, I didn't really think, I'm going to do a full length album, but then it just kind of ended up that I had all of these songs. I mean, I was writing at least 5 songs a week, if not more, if I was doing double writes in a day. So I had a lot of songs, a lot of content. And so my publisher, that's kind of when everything turned into kind of like a little label for me, because my publisher was just like, let's, make our own independent label and let's put this music out. So I was, working on the design of the album. I was working on, recording the songs. Yeah. I wrote all of them, and it was like very, that was a lot of work to get that first album together. And then for this last album, I finally had a bunch of people around me that were helping out with everything. And it was just a much more enjoyable experience for me, because I got to kind of, do my creative parts and then, send it off to somebody, and they would be like, well, what do you think about this for the cover? Or what do you think about this? And so it was much more like other people involved. And I thought that was really cool. And I loved being able to put together a new album. And it's crazy that it's only been out since January. I mean, to me, it feels like that was another world, because so many things have changed and it's been so weird. But I was really excited to get out on the road. And, I had all of these new fans from performing on The Bachelor, and I was just excited to get out there and be able to play this music. And now it's like so delayed. I don't know when I'll be able to get back on the road, but the album has just been doing really well, and we've been excited. And the new single that went to country radio, I have my first top 15 in Canada, which is crazy to me. And we just came onto the charts in the US, and it's been very exciting, even though everything has been very quiet and very chill, there are still some things going on that have been very exciting. And a lot of it has to do with, the fans and country radio.
I mean, I remember seeing on Twitter you posting that you reached number 50 at the same time that Ingrid Andress hit number 1.
Yeah, that was really exciting. I mean, there was a week there where I think, Ingrid Andress went number 1, Gabby Barrett went number 1, and then Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani went number 1. So I think it was the first time ever in history where, 2 debut females had number 1s back to back. And then, another female followed up right after that. So it's been an exciting time at country radio, I think. And, obviously being a new artist and coming onto the chart for the first time, I'm hopeful that, that kind of trend continues of new artists really getting a lot of exposure, and the female artists are just doing really well. And it's been exciting.
I mean, it's been a shame to see. I mean, everybody's heard about all these stories, all these radio stations not being able to play so many female artists back to back. And it's great to see, the charts actually featuring a lot more female artists. I mean, female artists, you can't get into the charts unless you get the spins and the plays and the streams, and it's finally nice to see it improving.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is improving. And I think, you know, I never really got very upset or down about the fact that there weren't a lot of females on the chart, just because, I mean, we've seen these trends come and go for years. I mean, the 90s, it was all about female artists. And I think, you know, I think we were just kind of in a trend where there weren't as many females, and there weren't, you know, they were out there as artists, but as far as, you know, radio singles and all of that stuff, like, I think we were just in a different trend. And I think it's obviously coming back around to more of, you know, what it was like in the 90s. And I think that's so great, so exciting. And like, yeah, I don't want to sit here and like bash like radio or anything like that, because I think it's just, you know, it's going to change. It's going to go in these cycles. And I don't think it's something to get super upset about. I think it's, you know, it's going to come back around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all I am is a podcast. So I can be quite impartial to what they say on the radio, whereas I know you can't be. You've got to hope for these radio stations to, you know, to play your music, because that's how both they make money and then you make money. So it's, you know, I get the struggles that artists go through, because as soon as you start bashing people, it's not a nice environment, and people just refuse to play you.
Yeah, and I mean, that would be a real shame, like, so early on in a career to, you know, even go that way. And I know that a lot of the radio stations have kind of, you know, taken some of the females that have, you know, really voiced their opinion on this, and it hasn't really seemed to help anybody. So I don't really know what's you know, changed recently. I'm sure, like, I mean, it's really been the artists. It's been the music that they've been putting out. You know, it's next level. It's been so amazing. And it's just really, really great to see, you know, two artists up there, new artists that, you know, are having these number ones. And I'm just hopeful that, you know, that trend continues, because I think it's going to be a really exciting time over the next few years for women in country music.
Now, you mentioned 90s a second ago. I'm a 90s baby. I know you are as well. Mm-hmm. When you first was noticed was originally by your neighbour, wasn't it? Singing a Shania Twain song.
Yeah, I mean, I was super young, just sitting in my backyard, you know, just like playing as a 7 or 8 year old kid. And I was always belting out songs. Like, I would be making them up. I would be singing, you know, what was on the radio. It was pop, it was country, it was everything. And my neighbor was outside when I was singing, and she, like, I think this is so cool that she actually thought to say something, because she came over and she was talking to my mom, and she was like, you know, I heard Tenille singing out in the backyard, and she sounded really, really good. Like, have you heard her sing before? My mom's like, oh yeah, she sings all the time. And so my mom ended up, she took me to an audition to sing for one of the vocal trainers in my hometown. And, you know, there were only like 2. It was a small town. So, it was really cool. I sang for her, and she wanted to take me on as a student. And it was just amazing. You know, that was more classical. So I trained classically for 10 years, but throughout that time, you know, when I was 13, 14, I was really into country music, and I was just, you know, I picked up the guitar for the first time and started writing for the first time around that age. And that's kind of when everything changed, as far as like me realizing, oh, like, this is a career and this is something that I could actually do. And around that time as well was when Taylor Swift came out, and, you know, she was a young girl playing guitar, writing her own songs. And I think that was very encouraging to see somebody else doing that. You know, since I already had the love for it, it was just, it was really cool. And it all started from my neighbor next door coming over and saying, you know, talking to my mom about it, which she still lives next door to my parents back home. So it's funny, every once in a while I'll see her at shows, and I'm just like, I'm so thankful you did that.
I mean, it's crazy because, you can almost credit her to you pursuing this, the whole country music, actually becoming a singer. I know you probably would have anyhow because you're a fantastic singer. But, sometimes it's just that one person that says, you know what, she's actually really good.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how much longer, I might have gone without getting into lessons or anything like that, because, that's the other thing too. Like, every parent thinks their child is talented, so it's like, well, it kind of takes like an outside perspective to be like, oh yeah, they actually are. You should pursue this, because I'm sure my mom was just like, oh yeah, I mean, she likes to sing and she likes music, but probably wouldn't have ever thought, oh yeah, my daughter's going to move to Nashville someday and do all these things. Yeah. It definitely takes, I think everybody's kind of got that one person in their life that kind of turned that switch on in their head, that it was like, oh yeah, this is a career. Yeah. So that was probably that girl next door. Yeah.
Oh, bless her. Well, I'm glad she's done it anyhow. What was it like actually moving from Weyburn to Nashville itself? Actually making that first, I'm going to go down there, see what it's like. Was it a couple of weeks you did first and then flip between the two?
Yeah. So when I was 15 years old, I made my first trip. And, I would just go for like 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And I was actually signed in a duo. So we were here in Nashville and we were writing and kind of going back and forth between Nashville and LA. And it was really exciting. I mean, I got to see a lot of the industry at a really young age. So now I feel like, I've seen a lot, even though I'm a new artist, it's not like I'm brand new, I've kind of been here for a while. And, so yeah, I kept going back and forth, and then I had graduated high school and didn't apply for any schools. I knew I didn't want to do that. I wanted to come to Nashville, so I ended up signing my first publishing deal and moved here, had to get the whole visa and everything, going from Canada to the US. And I moved here, and the first year it was weird because, I had never even lived on my own. So I was going from living at home with my parents, saving up, to move to Nashville. And then I moved to Nashville, and it was just basically me by myself, trying to book writing sessions and all this stuff. And the first year was kind of tough. I didn't know anybody my own age because everybody that I knew, was songwriters and they were older. And it was definitely a growing time for me. Like, I just had to kind of figure out where I fit in Nashville. And, it definitely got easier. And as I started to release music, I started to get out there a little bit more and do all of these songwriting shows and all of that stuff. So it was a big jump going from Weyburn, Saskatchewan to Nashville. But I feel like, it was just kind of one of those moments where I had to just take a leap of faith and be like, you know what, we're going to give this a go, because if we don't, I'm always going to wonder what could have been and what might have happened and all this stuff. So I'm so thankful that I ended up coming here, and it's just been really great.
Did you meet Tyler while she was in Nashville, or is he from Weyburn as well?
No, yeah, he's actually from Maryland. So we met in Nashville. He had moved here, I guess it'd be a year and a half ago, maybe now. And I had been living here, for 4.5 years when we met. So, we met here. He was bartending at a bar, and now both of us have grown, like I released my album, and he's actually now working for a label here in Nashville, doing the digital side of things. So it's been, really cool to just see how much, I mean, I would have never expected to meet somebody here, and I always thought, it'd be like somebody back home. But once you come to Nashville, it's like there are people from everywhere, and it's really nice that everything kind of lined up that way. And it's been awesome.
I see that you've been trying to teach him how to play guitar.
Yeah, that was one of the very first things that we did in quarantine. We kind of were like, well, I guess this would be the time to like try and learn some of that stuff. So I think he knows like 4 chords now. We're still working on it.
Oh, bless. How's he coping with it? Is he getting the hang of guitar, and is he coping with quarantine? I mean, it can be quite difficult, living with I'd say, you know, being with somebody for a year is quite relatively new. So being stuck in the house constantly, it's can be quite a stressful situation.
Yeah, I mean, I still have my place, so I kind of go back and forth between my place and his place. But
right.
it was a bit of a like, you know, we had gone from hanging out every once in a while because I would be on the road, you know, and so I'd come home and we'd hang out for a couple of days and then I'd be gone again. So it was definitely a big change to go from that to hanging out every single day. But it's been great, and he's also been extremely busy. The digital side of things have been, you know, obviously everybody, their only way of really communicating or playing shows or anything like that has been, you know, over the internet. And so he's been doing a ton of work with the social media team at his label. And I think he's been busier than ever. So that's kind of helped as well, because, you know, I'm over here trying to find things to do and he's super busy. So that's been good. But yeah, it's definitely been stressful on a lot of people. And, you know, I've even been talking with my social media team and they've had a lot of pressure on them to kind of figure out what to do during this quarantine time. Like, do we try to find ways to make money doing shows, you know, like virtual shows, and it's all kind of been so strange because, you know, we haven't really been given an end date to quarantine or when all of this stuff is going to end. And so right now I feel like everybody's kind of just living week to week, and it's been like, well, nobody's really making like long-term plans for quarantine or like how we're going to make money as artists, or, you know, how are we going to bring money into the label and all of these things. So it's definitely like, I don't know how much longer, you know, a lot of labels are going to be able to figure this out and make it work. You know, as soon as shows happen again, I'm sure, you know, it'll all go right back to normal. But yeah, right now has definitely been a stressful time for anybody in the digital world and trying to do these virtual shows and stuff. It's a lot, but yeah, I'm just hoping that things go back to normal really soon.
So there's a few points that I'm going to go to that you just mentioned in a second. But first thing I want to ask is, what did Tyler actually do to you on April Fool's Day?
Oh, so I hadn't seen this ever before, but there were apparently on TikTok, there's like this thing where guys say, you know, guys can do this, girls can't, and you like try to roll a little piece of popcorn or something off of your head into this little cone. And I was like, oh, well, I can do that. So he ended up pouring water down the cone while I was trying to get my little popcorn to roll off my head. And I'd water, like my pants were just soaked. And it was just, I mean, I really don't like pranks. And he figured that out after that first one. But I don't know, like I've always just kind of been somebody who like, pranks just make me very anxious and like I just don't like them. And so it was really that was funny, the first one, and when he got it all on video, so that was pretty funny too.
Do you want to say what you did in revenge?
Yes, so he had been growing out a mustache during quarantine, and you know, it was getting a little extreme, and so I ended up taking his little razor and sneaking up behind him and shaving off part of his mustache. So he ended up shaving the whole thing, but it won't take him long to have another mustache. So if he wants one, he can grow one. But yeah, it was pretty funny. I got him back.
Has he just shaved it all off now, or has he still got half a?
No, he shaved it all off. It's all gone. But yeah, I don't know. He might be coming home with me for Christmas. So I think eventually he's going to start growing a beard so that he can fit in with the Canadians.
Yeah. I saw a video that you put on Twitter about what it's like going from America to Canada and the kind of things you need to prepare and how cold it actually is. Is it really that cold?
I mean, during the winter, it definitely is. I mean, during the summer, it can, you know, be pretty warm and nice temperatures. And like, you can go to the lake, you can go in a pool and all that stuff. It's warm enough. But in the winter, it is so cold, especially in my home province because it's very flat. And so there's no trees like blocking the wind or anything. And it's like, it'll be minus 40 degrees Celsius, but it'll be minus 50 with the wind chill,
Wow.
So it's very, very cold in the winter. And my mom hates it. She's like, I'm just going to come and visit you in Nashville during the entire winter. I can't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cold.
Oh, I mean, we complain all the time about how cold it is in the UK. I mean, the lowest we'll usually go is, if it's really cold, it'll be -8.
Mm-hmm.
That's the absolute lowest it'll probably go. Now, normally during a winter, it's like just 0 or 1 degree. So
yeah,
-40, -50 wind chill is just it's making me shiver now just thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like at -20, -30, like anything that's colder than that, it kind of all just feels really cold. Like you can't really, it doesn't feel any worse really. But it's definitely, I mean, growing up, we would go to school in like a full-blown snowsuit. So it's definitely cold.
Going from Weyburn to Nashville, then, was it like a massive change for you in terms of climate?
Yeah, I moved kind of right around where the temperatures were pretty normal, but I remember my first summer was so hot. I had never really felt anything like that. I had been here for a week or two during the summer before, but always kind of tried to avoid it because people were like, it's so hot, it's just kind of miserable.
Yeah.
And the same way that it's so cold back home in the winter, it's like it's so hot here in the summer that it's like you almost don't go outside sometimes because it's so hot. And that's exactly what we do when it's too cold. So I'm kind of getting just like one extreme to the next. But the winters here are really nice and not too cold at all. We get a little bit of snow every once in a while, but then it melts right away. And Nashville winters are pretty mild, and it's nice to be here during that time.
Now, you mentioned earlier about like your social media team trying to think of ways of actually making a bit of money. Now, you've been doing some videos with fans.
Yeah, I have been. I did like I've been doing these like virtual meet and greets and stuff. And I know a lot of people have been making a little bit of money that way by like charging and doing stuff like that. But I decided to just keep doing them for free. So, I mean, I'm definitely not helping out my team in that way. But we've been doing the virtual meet and greets, and we've been doing, the live concerts on Instagram and Facebook, and I've been doing a lot of those with the radio stations. How you would normally go on a radio tour and play for everybody. It's kind of been like a virtual radio tour. I've been logging into all of these radio stations, Facebook and Instagram, and going live on there. And so I've actually been pretty busy with those. I've had up to like 4 or 5 of those a day sometimes, and so that's nice, and it's kind of a way to keep the radio stations interested and get exposed to their fans. So it's been good. Like I've actually enjoyed that part of it. And it's nice that the fans, if they're at home, they can still kind of participate in all of this stuff and kind of have, a midday concert wherever they are. So I've enjoyed that part of it a lot.
What's it like doing a virtual radio tour then? Is it just, do you have to warm up the same? Do you have to like prepare the same songs? What's it like?
I mean, it's a little bit more chill, I guess, just in the way that, I definitely warm up before I sing anything. So I always warm up before doing the live streams. But the thing that has been different about the live streams is that, I always kind of open it up to requests, or if there are people out there that have listened to the first EP through to the new album, they're calling out songs from the first EP or from the last album. And I'm like, I've been on the road for 2.5 years, and I've, once you kind of release a new project, like that's typically like what you play. Like you might throw it back to a couple older ones from previous projects, but it's like you mostly play the new stuff. So it's been like people were, requesting these songs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't played that in like a year and a half. Like, I'm going to have to go practice that. And then hopefully have it ready for the next live stream. So I've definitely gone back and played almost everything that I've released before, and that part's been fun, and also, a little stressful going back trying to learn them. But the virtual radio tour has just been just kind of very chill. Sometimes the hosts are on the live stream as well. Sometimes they just kind of give you the whole thing to just go and kind of do whatever you want. So, it's been fun. And a lot of them are like virtual happy hours as well, which is always fun. And, it's definitely, been way better than I thought it would be. I always used to get stressed out going live because you just kind of open yourself up to, okay, if you mess up, well, everybody gets to see it. But that's kind of been like the cool part about it. I mean, nobody really cares. They just want to be entertained and they just want to hang out. So it's been good.
I mean, it must be different because when you're playing a gig, if you say mess up, you've got that instant feedback from the crowd in front of you, and they know, they'll know if you've messed up. Whereas if you're doing it on a virtual live stream, you're playing to the camera, and then you don't know if people are noticing anything.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think that's the weirdest part about all of it, is that you like finish playing a song, and being an artist, you kind of thrive off of or get your energy from, the crowd or how they react to things or whatever. And now you're just kind of playing in front of a camera. And when you're done a song, you're like, okay, well, thank you.
Trying to read
it's
the
kind
comments.
of awkward. Yeah, it's kind of awkward, but I think I kind of got past that after the first few live streams, and now it just kind of feels normal, to be totally honest. This is the new normal.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I'll always keep on mentioning this, the coronavirus and COVID-19, and it's such a pivotal point for us now as a society, creating this new normal. I mean, we're all talking to family a lot more. We're all spending a lot more time indoors. There's less pollution on the streets. The whole scenario, yes, it's very, very, very sad that people are dying, but as a society as a whole, it almost seems like we're resetting.
I was thinking about that as well. It does kind of feel like we're all kind of realizing what matters, like I think we can go about our daily lives, and when things are normal, you just kind of get into this routine of, oh yeah, no, I'll call my mom next week. Oh no, I'll call her the week after that. Like you just kind of push things off and you don't do them and all this. And it's like, now here we are with this time of, I've talked to my high school friends more than ever during this time. And it's like, the lines of communication haven't changed. Like I could always call them before, or we could always set up Zoom conversations before. But, now it's like people are really seem to just be communicating with each other more, spending more time talking to each other, or even just going outside and enjoying the sun. I mean, I've seen kids outside actually playing, and you're like, this is so weird. Like you haven't seen that. I mean, when we were 90s babies, so we played outside and that was normal, but it's not really a normal thing now. I mean, you don't really see that as much. Everybody's kind of got their own like little devices inside, but I think that it's to the point where people are bored of those things. They're looking for other things to do. And I think it's great that people are getting outside. They're reconnecting with old friends. And I think we're going to come out of this stronger and better as a society. And I think it is really sad, obviously. I mean, we don't know when this thing is going to end or how many people are going to die from it. And it's just that part of it is heartbreaking. But it is a situation where I think, the millennials and all of us, we can kind of learn from this. And I mean, there's probably never going to be another pandemic in our lifetime, but it is something where, we can learn from this and we can grow and be better.
Yeah, I think the last, major flu pandemic was in 1918. So, that's not our lifetime. If you look to another, 120 years in the future, 110 years in the future, we won't be around. So it'll be interesting to see how future societies, I mean, we'll be talking about this in 10, 20, 30, 40 years' time. Can you remember back when?
Yeah. I know. I mean, I think about it. We are literally living a history book. You know, in the future, they're going to be reading back on this, and it's going to be like, yeah. And the thing is, like, I don't think we really could have learned from back in 1918, like, or whenever it was. You know, like, we couldn't really learn from what that was.
Yeah.
And now here we are, just kind of trying to figure it out on our own and trying to figure out, you know, what's going to happen. And I mean, I'm just hoping that they can, you know, find a vaccine soon, and that we can move past this. Cause, you know, I have some nursing friends, and they're saying that, you know, it's not really getting a whole lot better here yet. And so I'm just crossing my fingers that we can move past this soon.
Well, fingers crossed anyhow. Now, you mentioned earlier Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Now, when I first started listening to you, I instantly got Taylor Swift in my head. And now recently with your newer music, I can see, you know, strong influences of like Lindsay Ell, and, you know, you go back to Shania Twain. You can see all these major artists. I'm not please don't think I'm comparing you to them. But
oh, no.
you've got that certain style, that country pop, that almost like a bluesy sound to some of your songs as well. You know, it's fantastic to listen to. And, you know, when you're actually writing songs, do you almost come up with these melodies, not similar to them, but within like that same range as them?
I definitely think, like, I'm a firm believer, you know, that you're influenced by everything around you. You know, I think back to growing up listening to like the Dixie Chicks and Shania Twain, and I'm like, those melodies and those songs are somewhere in the back of my head, you know, all the time. I think everything that we've ever listened to, we're influenced by. So I definitely think, you know, when I sit down, I'm definitely drawing from somewhere. You know, I think it's always, you know, you're pulling from those influences. Even if you know, think something is completely new and unique and different, it could be, but it also is probably a combination of a lot of things that you grew up listening to. And I mean, I definitely think, you know, I can go back and listen to my music and see, oh yeah, that sounds like something Taylor Swift would have done. Or, oh yeah, that sounds like something the Dixie Chicks do. And that sounds like, you know, I can kind of pinpoint a few moments here and there that are clearly influenced by them.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool. I mean, it's every new artist out there, even if they're extremely new and different, you know, they're pulling from some kind of influence that they've had. And I think that's great. I mean, we're always growing and evolving. I mean, even the Beatles had influences, you know, so it's really cool to even just look back and see what I'm pulling from and how I'm, you know, coming up with this new stuff. It's really probably somewhere in my head from previous years.
Yeah. Now, what is your favorite single from, you know, Love, Heartbreak, and everything in between?
I mean,
if you had to pick one.
Yeah.
It's always a difficult question.
It is. I mean, I think the song Somebody Like That we released as the first single was kind of an obvious choice from the album. It was a song that, you know, I touch on love, heartbreak, and everything else in life. And I think that song kind of has all of those things in one song. And I think it definitely is a favorite of mine. And I wrote it after writing a ton of breakup songs. And I was just kind of, you know, over that time period in my life, and I wanted to write something hopeful. So I think that song just ended up being that kind of hopeful anthem, you know, of looking for love and not settling until you find something great. And so I think that would probably be one of my favorites on there. But also a song that I wrote for my mom. It's called Call You Names. And I think that's one that I'm extremely proud of, just because I've wanted to write a song for my mom for forever. And that song really just kind of came together exactly how I wanted it to. And it turned into one of my favorite songs as well. So I can't really pick one, but there's definitely a couple of standouts that, you know, I remember feeling really excited about when I wrote them.
Yeah, if I don't like picking just one, like you just say, you know, I've got three that instantly come to my head whenever I think fantastic. It's Somebody Like That, it's Call Your Names, and then my other one is I Hate This.
Oh yeah. I mean, that song was that was one of the first songs that I had written for this project. And it actually ended up being my very first single to country radio, and performed that song on The Bachelor. And so many things came from that song as well. So sometimes I forget that it's on the album because I'm like, it was so long ago. But I would definitely say that one as well. So thank you so much. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, it's great to... You post a lot of your acoustic sessions on Twitter. I mean, I always refer to Twitter because Twitter's like the best thing you can do to, just to check out artists and to check out what they're doing and different venues they go into. And I keep watching these acoustic sessions you do, and I Hate This is always nailed down to a T. All the vocal ranges, all the, the whole melody, everything's just nailed on.
Well, thank you. I feel like that song, I've probably sang that song more than any other song ever out of all the songs that I've written, because it was one that, we released it as a single while I was on radio tour. So, I mean, I was singing that song like 3-4 times a day for a year. So it's definitely one that I think I could, I can be thinking about something completely different and singing that song. Like, it's just kind of like muscle memory at this point. I could, sing it anywhere, anytime. So that's funny.
The things I love about it is you've got that lovely whine of the steel guitar, and then it's got that almost hint to classic country, rather than the country pop. It reminds me of going back to the 90s.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it was written in a really pure way, and I'm so glad that we recorded it like that, because I think it really came across the way we wanted it to. And I think, if we would have taken it too pop, it probably would have lost a little bit of the feeling and a little bit of the meaning behind it. So I'm really glad that we decided to stick with more of the country side of things. And, I did grow up listening to really old country like Patsy Cline and stuff like that. So every once in a while people will say that they hear that really old country in there, and it's like we were talking about before with the influences, obviously some kind of older influence on me came through in that song.
Now we go back to Call Your Names. Did you actually, was that you in your life, back when you was a kid? And then obviously I think everybody's done it really, but called your mother's names, called your parents' names, and then to actually realize, wow, I actually do love them.
Yeah, it was definitely like a real life story for me. I mean, I remember being, 14, 15 years old and kind of just like, I wanted to get out there and do my own thing. And it felt like my parents were holding me back, but, it's really, they were protecting me. And so, sometimes as a teenager, you get frustrated with that and you think your parents hate you and you're like, I hate you. And, and it kind of just ends up being this like, this battle, between parents and teenagers. And I think, after I graduated high school and spent some time at home just saving up to move to Nashville, I really got to see all of the things that my parents were doing. I think as a teenager, you're kind of blind to that stuff. You're very like in your own world and you don't really see what other people see or what they're doing. And I think, I kind of got to sit back and be like, oh, wow, like they are doing so much for me, while I'm off at dance practice, voice lessons, cheerleading, all of these things, like they are, working extremely hard to make sure my siblings and I have, everything that we need. And I think when I moved to Nashville, I realized just how amazing my parents really were. And I felt like I wanted to write kind of an apology to my mom. And so that song really kind of, I wrote it with a guy named James Slater, and he and I had never written before. So I remember the night before the writing session kind of being like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything to take to this writing session. I'm really excited to write with him. He's had some amazing, songs recorded.
Yeah.
And I was freaking out. I didn't have anything, I had tried to prepare and just nothing was coming to me. And I sat down with my old guitar, the very first one that my parents ever bought me. And I started playing the chords, that ended up now being the song Call You Names. And I had almost like half of the song finished that night. And then I came into this writing session with James, and he and I talked for 2 hours before we even started writing. And he just seemed like it was kind of one of those things where it lined up so perfectly. You know, I was like, I have this song idea, but it has to be the perfect person to write this with. And he just ended up being that perfect person to write it with. It was just a really great day. I mean, we worked on it for 8 hours that day. We came back and worked on it for another like 4 or 5 hours another day.
Yeah.
And it was a lot. We ended up with so much that we wanted to say that most of our like second writing session was just cutting it down, like making it into, you know, not a 5-minute song, you know.
Yeah.
We started cutting it down and taking out pieces that we felt weren't necessary, and, you know, tried to keep everything in there that we felt we needed. And yeah, it just turned into this song that I've wanted to write for forever. And it really is, you know, it says, you know, the choruses change from the first time to the second time. And it's just, you know, we yell at our parents, we say, I hate you, we say mean things. And then, you know, they end up being our best friend, and we call them every single day, you know, and the names that we call them change over time. And that was definitely my experience. So my mom also got to be in the music video as well. So that was a really cool thing.
Well, when you actually finished writing the song and then you had the tracks laid down with all the instruments, did you send it to your mom?
I actually didn't. And usually I do, because, you know, she's kind of the first one that I send things to, but I wanted to wait and play it for her in person. So I had a show, I guess it wasn't last summer, maybe the summer before that. And I was opening for Reba. And so my mom and my grandma were like, we can't miss this show. So they ended up driving down. And this was only a couple weeks after I had written the song. So I was like, I'm going to save it and play it for her, you know, in person. So I was getting ready for opening for Reba and all this stuff. And we were hanging out in the hotel room. And I was like, my mom and my grandma were there. And I just said, you know, I have this new song that I really wanted to play for you. So I was like, sit down. I'm going to play you this song. And she was crying and my grandma was crying.
Aww.
And it was a really special moment. And I mean, my mom still cries like every single time I play that song to this day. So I got to play it for her during my Grand Ole Opry debut. And I remember, you know, I couldn't quite see where my parents were. I had finished my first song and I was looking out in the audience and I spotted my mom and she was crying before I even sang that song. Yeah. So it's just been, really special to kind of have that song for the two of us. And it's just, I'm so thankful that that writing session came together and that the song ended up being the way that it is now.
Isn't it crazy just where you can actually come up with these, you know, the song ideas just almost out of nothing, but out of everything at the same time?
It's so true. That's such a great way to put it. Yeah, it's definitely like, you're like, okay, I don't really know what I want to say or whatever. And then it just kind of comes to you and it's amazing. I mean, sometimes I leave writing sessions and I'm like, wow, like that wasn't in the world before. Now this is a song. Like this is, it's just a really cool thing.
What's the actual quickest song that you've actually wrote?
I mean, one of the songs on Love, Heartbreak, and Everything in Between, the song Another Life was actually one that I wrote by myself. That song and Right Guy, Wrong Time. Those were two songs that, you know, I just kind of sat down and wrote them by myself and kind of didn't intend to show them to anybody. But, you know, I ended up sending them in to my publisher and it went from there. But those two songs, I mean, I sat down and wrote each of them in probably 30 minutes to an hour, you know, by the time I was finished with both of them. And it was very quick. And I think the only time I've really been able to do that has been when I've been writing by myself. So sometimes, you know, the inspiration just hits you and it's really easy to get what you're feeling, what you're thinking out. And those are the easy ones, but sometimes it takes, you know, 15 hours and you're like banging your head up against a wall. Like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to finish this. But yeah, it takes all kinds of songs.
A paper full of just random notes.
Yeah.
So when what's your actual longest time you've spent on on a track then? Is it just, like you say, 15, 18 hours, or has there been something that's just been weeks, months, years?
There have definitely been a few songs that I don't think I've really ended up releasing any of them, but yeah, there have been songs that actually no. The song "Rebel Child" from my first album.
Yeah.
I had started writing that song like in my bedroom back home in Canada. Probably, oh my gosh, like maybe 2013. Yeah. Possibly. And then, took it to a writing session in Nashville, and I think I didn't even bring it up for like another 2 years. So it was kind of one of those songs that I would keep going back to and keep writing it and, keep trying to figure out if it was right or not. And then I ended up taking it to a writing session and working on it here in Nashville. And I think, it had been years since the first time I started writing that song. So every once in a while, you pull one out from a while ago that you remember, or you find a notebook and you're like, oh wait, that was really cool. Like, I'm going to go back to that. So you never know. But I think the most recent one that had taken a long time was Call You Names. It was just like one of those long writing sessions. But yeah, you hear about artists too recording songs that, they get, everybody in Nashville has kind of pitched songs from songwriters, and every once in a while you'll hear about a songwriter getting a song cut that, they wrote 5 years ago, and it's just kind of been floating around, like looking for the right person. And then all of a sudden it gets recorded and they're like, oh, cool. Like, I didn't know that something like that I wrote 5 years ago was going to be so relevant now. But you never know when it comes to songs, if they're really great, they might come back and end up being a number one hit. You never know.
Well, that's a dream. That is the ultimate dream at the end of the day. You just want to hit that number one, for whether it's for yourself or whether it's a song that you've written for anybody else.
Yeah. That's the ultimate goal. That's why everybody's here in Nashville, and I feel like we all kind of get little tastes of success, and then we want more and we want to have that number one song, and it's definitely like an attainable dream. It happens to people all the time. So it's really cool, and it's an exciting place to be in Nashville, and just seeing, people's dreams come true all over the place. It's really cool.
Have you had the opportunity to write a song for anybody else yet, or are you still working on that?
I haven't had any of my songs really pitched to other artists. I've had a few friends, like if I've written with them and they're also artists, they've recorded them and released them. But I think, I haven't really ever focused on that, just because we've been recording for my own project. But now that I have, when I was writing for Love, Heartbreak, and everything in between, like obviously I had other songs that didn't make the cut. But there were a few of them in there that I really liked. They just didn't fit on this album. So I've been going through lately and kind of picking out songs that I think could work for other artists. So I'm excited. I'm going to try and, start pitching songs to other people really soon, and we'll see what happens.
So what's your actual writing process then? Do you think of the melody first, or do you actually think of the lyrics and then add the melody later?
I'm usually I kind of think of an idea, or kind of a feel, is it going to be sad? Is it going to be happy? What's the feel going to be like? And then sometimes I'll have a title, or, just an idea. And I always try to kind of map out what it's going to look like melodically first, kind of try to fit the melody with what I want the feel of the song to be. If I want it to be sad, I'm like, I want the melody to feel sad and to feel, like what the song will eventually feel like. But I almost want it to feel like that, just even without words, just kind of get that feel going. And then I usually try to, fit in the lyrics and just kind of mumbling random things, just kind of until I find something that feels right. And I'm definitely kind of a melody first type of person, and then get into the lyrics.
How do you decide what actually goes into an album then? You got a list of 20 songs. What is your thought processes into, this song will make it, this song won't, this song will make it, this one won't?
It's a really difficult process. Especially for me, I feel like, all of these songs have a special place in my heart. And, I can go back and remember what I was feeling when I was writing them and everything. But I feel like I've done an okay job of stepping back from that and kind of looking at it as a whole project and like what a project really needs.
Yeah.
And when it came to Love, Heartbreak, and Everything in Between, it was actually going to be 3 separate EPs. So they were going to be themed, and they were going to have, 4 songs on each. And I had kind of had that in mind the whole time, even while I was writing towards the end. I was thinking like, okay, that I don't really have what I need for this category or whatever. And putting together the album, I kind of just took that idea and put it into an album. So it still actually is themed. Like the first 4 songs are love songs, the next 4 are breakup, and the last 4 are everything else in life. But it was definitely tough. There were a couple songs in there that we've even shown them on social media lately, being like, oh, this is a song that didn't make the cut. And some people are like, what the heck? How did that not make it? But it is like, it's kind of an artistic vision, I guess. It's more of like, what do I want people to get, from this album? You can't have all party songs, and you can't have all breakup songs, and you have to kind of have this perfect mixture of all of them. So yeah, I just tried to look at each song and the whole project and just try to make sure that there was a little bit of all of, all the sides of me in the album.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of tell when you read down the actual album list, the actual love, the heartbreak and the in-between. I mean, you go from the everything in between, from Call Your Names right down to, your last song on there, which is Everybody Knows Everybody. It's a great mix. It's a great way of actually separating the album. Normally, when I look at albums or EPs, there's usually some form of roller coaster. It's up, down. But this, it's got a nice flow through it.
Thank you. That's really nice of you to say that. It was definitely kind of a thought out thing. And, I was thinking about, if somebody was going through a breakup and they just wanted to, have a good cry or listen to those sad songs, they can just hit play on those 4 songs and, kind of hopefully feel better, after listening to them. And that was kind of just the thought process behind putting the songs in the order that I did. And it, it's been really exciting because normally as an artist, if you're with a label or whatever, sometimes you can lose a little bit of creative control.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've been so thankful about is, my team has really let me kind of run with some of the ideas that I've had. And, when I had the EP idea, they were like, okay, that's cool, but maybe we put it into an album so that you can have, a full-length album come out. And it's like, that's a great compromise, like to put, this idea that I had and, they didn't totally tear it down. They were like, no, let's just like put it together in this album. And I've been very thankful and lucky to have a team that allows me to do those things. Cause sometimes, as artists, when you end up with a label or, it is my dream to be with a major label, but, it definitely, sometimes you can lose part of that and you can lose part of the creative side of things. So it's definitely nice to be able to hold on to that right now.
Because you're with Reviver now, aren't you?
I'm just 19th and Grand Records, which is the small label. Yeah. So we were with Reviver for a little while and we're back to, it's the same kind of team basically. But 19th and Grand.
So you mentioned the creative process, and we mentioned earlier about your social media team and all that lot. When you actually started promoting the album, I noticed that you was posting a lot of images of butterflies with little meanings on it and messages and, the thoughts behind each song, what you enjoyed about it. Whose idea was that? That's such a quirky thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of... when we started talking about how we wanted to release the album and how we wanted to get it out there, I've always been kind of crafty and I like to do stuff like that. And a lot of it was, I kind of went back and just drew images for each song and like how they made me feel and what each song was about. And, I think the butterfly is such a symbolic thing, it kind of shows something, just growing into something beautiful. And I think, when you're going through a heartbreak, sometimes you kind of feel like you're, just small, and you're not really, you're not really blooming, you're not really becoming anything. But then all of a sudden, you can get this burst of confidence, and you end up just coming out of a breakup so much better. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. So I think the butterfly is definitely a great symbol of that.
I mean, it was just so different. I've not seen anything, I've not seen artists always, say what goes on behind, behind the scenes, they explain where the thought processes are and how they actually get to certain decisions. But it was such a different way of seeing the thoughts behind somebody's music, and it was lovely. It was genuinely beautiful.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you like that. Thank you for saying that.
So you mentioned earlier about the Grand Ole Opry. How was it? How was the whole experience? How was it actually walking through those hallowed doors and just the whole everything? Just wow.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, the whole day was just kind of like, wow, okay, this is really happening. I had gotten the news that I was going to be making my debut, and my whole family was so excited. They decided to all fly down for my debut. And I had never had all of them here in Nashville before. So it was just, a really special moment for my entire family, because, they've all been a part of this too. My siblings have been extremely supportive. My parents have been there through everything. I mean, I had aunts and uncles come, my cousins, everybody. And it was just the most amazing experience. And we all kind of got to share in it together. And, we had a celebration afterwards. But I remember just walking into the Grand Ole Opry thinking okay, this is happening. This is today. And it was really special. I was very nervous, just kind of I wanted it to be perfect. And it was. And I remember walking out on stage and, taking some deep breaths. And I just looked down and saw myself step into this circle for the first time. And it was just a really, really incredible experience, incredible feeling to be on a stage where, so much history is there. And not only that, but you also almost feel like you're accepted by country music in general. When you're invited to play the Opry, it's like they are saying you are worthy of stepping onto this stage. Yeah. And that's just a crazy feeling. And it's just for all time now, I'm going to be an artist that has played on the Opry. And I just think it was a really, really special moment.
So how does all that, actually come out? Who was it that told you can, you're being welcomed onto the stage?
Jeannie Seeley, she was the one that, welcomed me onto the stage, and, it was incredible. And, even I remember when my manager first called me and told me that I was going to be, performing on the Opry. And it was just it kind of came out of nowhere. I never really expected that, I was going to be able to make my Opry debut so early on in my career. And I was just so excited. And then standing backstage and having a legend like Jeannie Seeley, announcing me, and she's talking about me. She's listened to all of my music and she's excited, and I'm just like, what is happening? This is so cool. And I even had one of the producers come up to me and say oh my gosh, I love your song so much. And I'm just like, what? Oh, wow. This is so cool. Yeah.
Almost pinch yourself. This isn't happening.
Oh yeah, definitely. The whole time.
So I want to go to your first album, Rebel Child. I just want to ask about one song in particular, and that's Cold Feet. The whole premise of the song. I mean, have you been through something like that, or do you know somebody who's been through that kind of situation? I'll let you explain this song.
So actually that song is the only song on the entire album that I did not write. And a lot of people don't know that. And so it's definitely, when they ask me about the song, it's no, I haven't really been through exactly that thing. But I feel like everybody can relate to, being in a new relationship and maybe thinking back on past relationships that they've had, and like maybe wondering like, okay, maybe there was something real there, maybe there wasn't, and Cold Feet talks about how, I mean, it's the extreme. I mean, this guy is coming out and saying, you shouldn't marry this person. But I definitely feel like a lot of people can relate to that feeling of just like not being 100% sure or kind of questioning themselves. And this song is, I always say it's kind of like a Nicholas Sparks book in a song, because it's got this whole story to it. And I mean, at the end, you don't really find out what happens. And the first time I heard the song, I was just being pitched it by another songwriter, and I was sitting there thinking, like, this is what I love about country music. The storytelling side of this is so beautiful. And so I immediately knew that I wanted to, record it for my project and have it be, on my first album. And the song is really special. It's definitely still been one that people talk about all the time. And, I did a really, this music video that we did for it was probably one of the most like intimate music videos I've ever done. It was just me and the video guy in the room, and he was just like, trying to bring out the emotion that he wanted in the video. And it was really, a very unique experience for me, because I was like, I've never been an actress before, but it was kind of like, you had to tap into that. You had to feel the emotion, you had to go into something where it was like, if at any point in your life you have felt this before, like tap into it now. And so it was, a really cool experience. I learned a lot, and this song, I just love that people are still talking about this song, because I love it so much.
I mean, yeah, I knew personally that you didn't write the song, because it was Adam Wheeler and John Ritter. I've got a list just in front of me of who wrote each song. I had to do a bit of research and my thoughts. I'm just showing Tenille on Skype at the moment what I've actually got in front of me. I've got a track listing of her first album. And yeah, it was written by Adam Wheeler and John Ritter, but the way I'm coming from it is the way you can tell the story. You can actually feel like that's actually happened to you. The way you just sing the whole song. It's just it's like you're there. It's brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just I'm really thankful that song somehow ended up being pitched to me, and that I could bring that story to life, because it is kind of like when I was recording the vocals, I was just tapping into, when I had felt like that before. And I'm so glad that it came across that way, and that you feel like you can feel the story in the way that I'm singing it. So thank you.
I mean, it's no surprise that everybody else has asked you the same question.
Thank you.
So out of all the songs that you've, whether you've written them or you've just sung them, what's your favourite to actually perform on stage?
I think at this point in my career, obviously I'm hoping that somebody like that does really well. But I think the song that is really cool to perform is I Hate This, because, people were exposed to that song through The Bachelor. And a lot of people don't realize that, like, people that watch The Bachelor are also huge country music fans. Yeah. So a lot of my fan base has kind of come from those few performances that I've done on the show. And unfortunately, I haven't really been able to perform somebody like that very much this year, since performing it on The Bachelor earlier this year. So I don't know what the reaction's like to that song yet. But for I Hate This, I mean, people are singing at the top of their lungs during that song. And it is just the coolest thing to be able to stand up there and be like, oh my gosh, these people are singing my words back to me. Like, this is amazing. So I definitely love the energy that song brings. Even though it's a breakup song, people are just like belting it out, and it's the coolest thing.
I mean, it's great that you just mentioned that, because that was the next thing I was going to talk about, was The Bachelor. How did it actually come about? Who came to you and said, do you want to perform on The Bachelor?
So my manager, like really early on, he and I had talked about, kind of thinking outside the box, like, sending my music to different TV producers and, just kind of trying to get it out there in different ways. And he had sent my music to one of the producers of The Bachelor, and her name's Jaina, and she ended up being a huge fan of my music. And so the first time I was on the show, it was actually a song that, had never been released before. It kind of sounded like we wrote it for the show, though. It was very like, all about letting your walls down and falling in love and all of this stuff. So it was so perfect. And so she asked me to come on the show the first time. And then the second time I was like, this never happens. I mean, they never have artists come back. So I was really like not even thinking about it. And then my manager told me, he was like, she wants to continue to help like support you. And she wants to have you on the show again to sing I Hate This. And I mean, I was singing a breakup song on a date, but it was just the coolest thing ever. And for them to have me back for that, and then now back again to sing Somebody Like That was on the season premiere of Peter's season in January. And yeah, it's just been really, really cool to be a part of that. And I would have never expected that, the way I would get my music out there would be through a TV show called The Bachelor. But I don't think, nobody's story, it never happens the same twice. So I just think it's so cool that, my story involves this huge TV show and getting my music out there like that.
Now, I first heard of The Bachelor through the Bobby Bones show, because Lunchbox, one of the presenters on there, he's addicted to it. He always talks about it. And I don't think we have anything like that here in the UK. Now, just to explain The Bachelor, it's basically a guy that hands out a rose to certain women that he likes, and they go on a date. And then Peter, is that Pilot Pete? Was that the...
Yes.
Because he was a well-known one for The Bachelor. Everybody loved him.
Yeah. It was definitely, an interesting season, and, it is kind of a different kind of show. It's like one guy dating all of these women, trying to narrow it down to one person. And then, they usually pick a bachelorette from that season to then, be the one with 30 guys and trying to figure out who she wants to date. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. I mean, when you start watching it, it's like, okay, well, now you got to keep watching because you want to find out what happens.
See, we need to get it over here. I mean, the American producers they need to branch out. They need to come over here. So
yeah, I mean, I would watch that.
Now, obviously, we talked about before you were supposed to come here for C2C, and then you end up having to go home. Have you got any plans for coming back to the UK?
I definitely do. We've heard rumors about the next C2C and what that's going to look like and everything. And I would absolutely love to be able to come back. There were so many people that I wanted to perform for that I didn't get to. We didn't get to any of the shows in London. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I promise it won't be long. I've already, talked with my managers about coming back. So hopefully very, very soon. I just can't wait to see everybody again.
The other thing I can say to that now is just if you ever do a tour around the UK, just make sure you come up north.
Okay, I definitely will. Oh my gosh, I would love that so much. It's so beautiful.
Whether it's Leeds, York, or Manchester, just any one of those three, and then I'm happy. That's all.
All right.
That's what I want. Just so I don't have to travel 250 miles down to London.
Perfect.
But yeah, we're getting towards the end of it now. Is there anything else that you'd like me to add? I know we've got to say your social media and where you can find your music, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I mean, this has been so great to chat with you and to, just talk about some of the parts of the music that doesn't often get talked about. And it's so cool of you to ask these different questions and to get so involved in it. So thank you so much.
Well, end of the day, we're all fans of the music. We're all fans of whether it's country music or whether it's pop or whether it's anything. That's all we care about. And I'm not a radio DJ. I don't have the exact voice for radio. I mentioned before we started this that I'm a northerner. And sorry, I apologise in advance if you couldn't understand what I was saying. But I'm a fan of music, and I'm a fan of your music as well, and that's all that really matters.
Well, thank you. And it's so funny because I think the first time that I came to London, I couldn't understand the accents at all, and now I'm like, I think I've got it down. Like, I think I get it. So,
I mean, if you ever do come up north, you'll notice there is a massive change between the accents between, say, London and then like Liverpool or Newcastle. There's such a diverse range of different accents. It's like going between, say, Kansas and Massachusetts. You know, there can be quite a big range.
Well, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is like that here, especially with the Southern accents and stuff too.
All right then, Tenille. So where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, just at Tenille Arts. And I love connecting with people on social media. So, you know, if you follow or if you comment back on things, you know, I love to chat with everybody. So I hope that people will check it out.
And your music's on iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, pretty much everywhere, isn't it? Amazon.
Yeah,
Amazon's
it's available everywhere. Yeah.
All right, so what I normally do at the end of each podcast is I ask a couple of questions. Now, it's going to be slightly different for you because you're in America, so your kind of habits are slightly different to ours. So the normal questions I'd ask are like, do you drink coffee or do you drink tea?
All right, well, I drink coffee.
You drink coffee? Does
Yes.
anybody really drink tea in the States?
I mean, I drink tea like a little bit at night every once in a while, but like it's not a thing where, you know, I know you guys like have tea and it's not really a thing over here, but I mean, we definitely drink it every once in a while.
Do you have biscuits? We call them biscuits. I think you call them just cookies over there.
Yeah, we just call them cookies because when I think of now being here in the southern US, I mean, they call like biscuits are kind of like
scones, like a bready. Yeah, biscuits and gravy kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, we call them biscuits over here, and then for what southern states call biscuits, we call like scones or like a bread.
Yeah.
I've never been a big fan of biscuits. I mean, I like the white gravy, but the biscuits are a bit too.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. I mean, I've never actually had biscuits and gravy, but yeah, biscuits are kind of like, to me, they're just kind of like dry, and I don't know, like people put like jam and stuff on them, but yeah, they're not my favorite.
See, I've always been more of a sweet person. Now, when you add jam, it obviously makes it sweeter, but the actual biscuits themselves are quite salty. It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, it's kind of like you have to like that sweet and salty combination.
Yeah. So what kind of like lifestyle do you lead then? Do you have like certain diet, certain eating regime, or is it just whatever you want, whatever you fancy?
Yeah, not really. Like, I'm not too strict with anything. I obviously, you know, try to work out and so that I can fit into my show clothes. But I work out a little bit, but I just try to eat healthy. You know, I grew up eating extremely healthy. Everything that I ate, my mom would make. So I try to, you know, be healthy when I can. But I'm also not, you know, if somebody's got cookies, I'm going to eat them. And if there's ice cream, I'm going to eat that too. So, yeah, I'm not too strict with anything, but I just try to lead as healthy of a lifestyle as I can.
Go on, what's your favorite ice cream?
So do you guys have Ben & Jerry's ice cream there?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so Tonight Dough is my favorite. It's the one that they made with the, you know, the Tonight Show.
No, we actually don't have that flavor of it.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
The closest thing to like that is cookie dough, I presume.
Yeah, it's like cookie dough, but then there's little other things in there as well. It's so good. Oh my gosh, it's my favorite.
I'll have to see if I can get some shipped over here. That sounds quite nice.
Yeah, you should try it.
What about potato chips? Crisps for us Brits.
What was that?
Crisps for us Brits. We call them crisps.
Oh, yeah.
You call them potato chips over there.
Yeah, we just call them potato chips, but I love potato chips. I'm kind of a little bit more of like a salty person. So if I try not to even buy potato chips because I'll sit down and eat them all.
I'm the same.
Yeah, so they're so good.
What about nachos? Do you eat anything like nachos and cheese dip, queso?
Yeah, actually, well, it was Cinco de Mayo here yesterday, so we had nachos and cheese dip and queso and guac and margaritas. So, yeah, definitely a big fan of that.
You see, I spent a bit of time in Texas, in San Antonio, and the Tex-Mex food there is just out of this world. You know, when you have chips and dip, their queso is just, it's out of this world.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've been very lucky, as I've gone across the United States, and everywhere that I've gone, I've tried to kind of eat like locally or whatever's popular there. I always try it. And yeah, I mean, Southern Texas definitely has a lot of really great food.
If you was to go out to a restaurant, where's the kind of restaurant you go to?
That's a really good question. I always try to like switch it up, but I love Mexican food. I love, Thai food, and I pretty much eat everything. I'm kind of less of like I'm always the person just like tagging along wherever anybody else wants to eat. I always go there because I know I'll find something that I like everywhere. So I'm not picky at all.
Awesome. Well, last question is alcohol. Do you drink anything at all?
I do, yeah. A little bit of red wine, and I'm definitely more of like last night we had tequila for Cinco de Mayo, so I like tequila, and I like whiskey. So those are probably my 3 favorites.
Do you do tequila with the salt and lime wedge and then just shot it back, or?
I kind of like to mix it more into drinks, but every once in a while, actually my band and I, before every show, we do a tequila shot. So I do shoot it back every once in a while.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Tenille. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thanks for asking me to chat with you. And this has been amazing. And hopefully when I'm back over there, we can meet each other and meet for the first time in person.
Yeah, we'll have to have it. I'll bring my recording equipment. We can have a quick catch up there. And hopefully it's soon. Hopefully we're out of this lockdown soon and we can actually get back to some form of normality.
Yeah, I would love that.
So yeah, everybody check out Love, Heartbreak and everything in between on all forms of music media, but preferably if you buy it, that's even better. But yeah, check it all out. Thanks for coming on, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
That was the Country Chat Podcast. Join Dom next time for exclusive interviews, reviews, and general chit-chat on all things country music.